Mr. President, we have an equally important part of the agenda today. We'd like to recognize our minority floor leader, for Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, to deliver the contra sona or his observations from the State of the Nation address yesterday. May we recognize our distinguished minority floor leader.
Yes. We recognize the gentleman from Taguig
Yes.
City, our good minority leader, Senator Alan Cayetano.
Thank you, Mr. Senate President, Majority Leader, dear colleagues. And before we start, may I congratulate also the Senate President for his speech yesterday. Akma talaga sa panahon. Thank you for reminding us to settle down. May we also remind you to settle down since you're still single.
Pero mahirap yata yun, minority leader.
Mahirap na masaya. Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. May I start by reading a verse from a prophet who is respected by Muslims, Christians, and Jews. Jeremiah said in Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." God talks about plans. Wala pong sino man sa atin ang magsasabi ng plans o plano na walang vision. Vision is contingent on actions. So siguro po sa privilege ng oposisyon at ng minority na magbigay ng kontrasona, napakalaga po na meron tayong isang bagay na pagkakasunduan bilang mga Pilipino, which is a common vision. But in Jeremiah 29:11, when God says He will give us hope and a future, the plans comes from Him. But if we choose our own plans, or if we choose the plans of the devil, the reverse will happen. We will not have hope, we will not have a future, and instead of prosperity, we will have harm. Many, many times in the 1980s, I asked my dad about politics, about government, governance. Minsan tinatanong ko, bakit marami kang kaibigan sa oposisyon? Bakit marami kang kaibigan sa media? Bakit ganyan ang debate sa batasan pambansa? Ano ang issue ng Marcoses at ng Aquinos? Not knowing that two of them will be my colleagues today. Not knowing that we will have a President Aquino and President Marcos much later. But there was always a common thread in the answer of my father when I would ask him questions. He would say, para sa inyo to, para sa mga kabataan to, kayo pag-asa, para sa next generation ito. It is in that spirit that when I read the Bible and see the Father's heart, the relationship of a father and a son should be the relationship of leaders of a country, leaders of a province, leaders of a city, leaders of a barangay with his constituents. So payagan niyo ako, Mr. President, na ipagpatuloy itong conversation na to na tawagin nating kontrasona sa pamamagitan ng pagtatanong ng isang anak sa isang ama at pagsasagot ng isang ama sa kanyang anak. So syempre po ang unang tanong ng bata o ng anak, Tay, Tatay, Dad, ano po ba ang state of the nation? Siyempre po, sasagutin natin siya, Anak, ang state of the nation ay isang paglalahad ng estado o kalagayan ng ating bansa. Kamusta ang ating komunidad? Kamusta ang ating gobyerno? Ang ating ekonomiya? Maganda ba takbo ng buhay? Hirap ba ang ating mga kababayan? Tay, bakit po kailangan ng state of the nation? Sagot po ni Tatay, para may starting point tayo na pag-usapan natin nasaan ba tayo ngayon? Saan ba tayo papunta? Paano tayo pupunta doon? Ano ang vision, goals, plans, at mga programa? Ano ang pananalapi na kailangan natin para ma-achieve yung vision na yon na gusto natin puntahan? Kaya kasunod parati ng SONA ang pag-deliver ng Executive Department ng national budget or yung kanilang proposal sa both houses of Congress. Anak, nasa demokrasya tayo. Kaya hindi pwedeng diktahan lang tayo. Kailangan natin ng national discussion. Pag-uusap para magkaisa tungo sa isang vision or pinagkaisahan vision para sa ating bansa at ating kababayan. Watak-watak na nga tayo. Lalo pang nagkakawatak-watak kapag ka may mga suliranin o crisis. Ano kaya ang pwedeng magpakaisa sa atin? Or ano po kaya ang pwedeng magbigkis-bigkis sa atin? Una po, ang pagmamahal sa Diyos. Pangalawa ho, pagmamahal sa isa't isa. Pero ngayon po, pag binabash natin yung isa't isa, nagagamit na rin ng Diyos, nagagamit din yung pagmamahal sa bayan, pagmamahal sa isa. So may I propose that we work together for a common vision. We will disagree how we get there. We will disagree what to prioritize, how much to put where, how much time to spend on each issue. But if we agree on a common vision, then we have something to truly give the next generation. Tay, ano po ba ang vision? Ano po ba ang goals? Ano po ba ang plans? Vision ay siyang nakikita ng isang leader o na isang community. Ito ay isang kaisipan na kung saan niya gustong dalhin ang kanyang pinamumunuan. Kailangan ng pagkakaisa papunta sa isang vision. I'm reminded of the story told by many people, including Dr. Miles Monroe, of the story of Walt Disney. There was this particular ride that was going to be groundbreaking, first of its kind sa Disneyland. He put a bench, he continued to just look at that area, then started drawing, then called his engineers at sinabi niya sa engineers, eto ang gagawin natin bagong ride. Magiging bagong section ito ng Disneyland. He died before it was completed. When it was completed, the MC called the wife and said, before he passed the mic sa asawa, sabi niya, nakakalungkot because hindi makikita ni Mr. Walt Disney yung project niya. So pagkuha po ng mikropono ng asawa, sabi niya sa MC, ikaw ang nagkakamali. Kasi ayan yung upuan, no? Araw-araw nakikita ng asawa ko yung project kasi may vision siya. Tayo, ngayon lang natin nakita yan. So, isn't it time that we provide a better vision, a more comprehensive vision, that we articulate what we really want instead of political slogans, no? Importante yung political slogans, a safe and comfortable life, a better Philippines, para sa may hirap. Importante po yung mga yon. Ngunit napaka-importante po na may shared vision tayo. Tay, ano po naman yung mga plano? Ang plano ang sasagot sa mga tanong na paano natin ma-achieve yung vision? Paano tayo makakapunta sa gusto natin paruunan? Ang plano ay dapat may mga goals. At ang goals ay dapat nababase sa kakayahan at potensyal. Huwag tayo gagawa ng goals na hindi naman kayang i-achieve dahil pambobola lang yon. Pero wag na din nating maliitin ang ating mga sarili. Wag nating sasabihin okay na yung grade na 75 kung kaya natin ng 80. Wag natin sabihin okay na yung 80 kung kaya natin ng 85. Potential is very important. Para malaman natin ang potential, may proseso ng analysis at comparison. Kailangan natin maikumpara sa tamang paraan ang ating bansa na ikumpara sa mga mauunlad na bansa at sa mga bansa na ka-level natin. Tulad ng Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, at mga bansa na mas maunlad sa ating katulad ng Japan. Of course, ngayon sasabihin natin Korea, but once upon a time, baliktad yung storya. Balikan po natin yan. Tay, magbigay ka naman ng halimbawa. Anak, tignan nyo yung GDP per capita natin. in current dollars. Ng 1970, ang Thailand ay 197.1, ang Vietnam dahil gera doon 67, ang Philippines ay 200.9. Ng 1980, ang Thailand ay 708, ang Pilipinas ay 767. Never mind Vietnam, they were still at war, it was 46. 1990, 1,559.1 ang Thailand, 803 na lang ang Pilipinas, dumoble na. Mula sa pantay lang ng 1970, in 20 years, doble na. In the year 2000, tumaas din tayo from 800 to 1,050.8, pero tumaas din ang Thailand ng 2006. 2010, 4,973, tayo 2,162. Hindi ko na isa-isahin yung mga bansa, pero tignan nyo po. Sa ngayon, Thailand, 8,056. Pang 87 sa mundo. Pilipinas, 4,170, pang 119 sa mundo. Vietnam, 5,066, pang 101, pang 111 sa bansa. Pero tignan nyo po, 1970, 67, 1980, 46, 1990, 98. Hanggang 1990, $100 lang ang per capita nila. 2,404. 2010, it was 1,600. Pero ngayon po, nasa 5,000 na. Malaysia, 13,000. Singapore, 98,000. South Korea, 36,000. Japan, 35,000. Tay, ano ba ang estado talaga ng ating bansa? What is the state of our nation? Ang estado, anak, ng ating bansa, ang ating bansa ngayon ay dumadaan sa kahirapan. Mahirap, anak. Mahirap. Mahirap, ngunit malaki ang potensyal. Mahirap, ngunit may dahan-dahan na pagbabago. Mahirap, ngunit malaki ang potensyal. May mga pagbabago, ngunit puno ng pagsusubok. Puno ng pagsusubok at ng peligro. Hirap ang mga namamasadang tricycle at jeep, mga riders. Hirap sa taas ng presyo ng diesel at kuryente. Hirap ang ating mga magsasaka. Mga anak ng magsasaka, ayaw na po nila maging magsasaka o farmers. Hirap po ang mga estudyante, marami rin pong tumitigil sa pag-aaral. Hirap po ang ating mga OFWs kasi tumaas man ang presyo ng dolyar, labis din tumataas ang presyo ng bilihin at ng kuryente sa ating bansa. Tay, malaki din ba ang potensyal ng ating bansa? Malaki ba ang potensyal ng Pilipino at Pilipinas? Nako anak, siguro sa buong mundo baka Pilipinas ang pinakamaganda potensyal. Bakit po? Mayaman at maganda ang ating bansa. Pag-usapan natin pinakamataas na bundok. Pag-usapan natin ang pinaka-humble na plains. Pag-usapan po natin ang dagat, ang ilog. Pag-usapan natin ang kahit anong mineral, ginto, pilak, nickel. Pag-usapan natin langis, natural oil. Meron po tayo. Pag-usapan naman natin ang Pilipino. Sabi nung iba, natural resources natin ang number one blessing ng Panginoon sa atin. Hindi po. Ang Pilipino ang number one blessing sa Pilipinas. Napaka-adaptable ng Pilipino. Dalin mo sa Middle East, dalin mo sa Ukraine, sa Europe, Southeast Asia, Africa. Tinitingala. Gawin mong nani o yaya, nagiging pangalawang nanay. Gawin mong aid sa dentistry, mas gusto pa siya kaso dun sa kanyang dentist. Yung mga nurse natin, lalong hinahanap kaso sa mga doktor. Yan ay sa Japan man, yan ay sa London or sa Amerika. Napakalaki ng potensyal ng mga Pilipino at napakagaling natin sumunod sa batas. Basta't tayo'y nasa abroad. Tay, ano po yung peligro? Anak, ang number one na tinuturo parati sa amin ay ang edukasyon ay ang great equalizer. Yung aking ang ama ang sabi sa amin, anak, lahat ng iiwan ko sa inyo, pwedeng mawala, pwedeng mawaldas, pwedeng nakawin, pero ang edukasyon na nakamtam mo, walang pwedeng magnakaw sa iyo yan. Pero bakit ko sinasabi may peligro? Unang-una po, yung sa problema ng pagkabansot or yung pong sinasabing stunting. Sinasabi na hanggang 25% or 1/4 po ng Pilipino ay nasa endangered ng stunting. Naging bisita po ng Pilipinas ang Pangulo ng Singapore at naging privilege po ng Taguig na maging bisita dahil may proyekto po sa ospital ang kanilang isang foundation, ang Temasek, at napakaganda ng mga teknolohiya. Pero nagulat po kami sa speech ng Pangulo ng Singapore. Sabi niya, kasi ito'y isang finance person, magaling sa negosyo, magaling sa finance. Sabi niya, sa lahat ng nakita niya sa gobyerno, ang pinakamalaking return sa tao ng isang bansa ay yung first 1,000 days. Yung simula sa mabuntis hanggang 1,000 days nung bata, sapagkat pag siya'y nabansot at apektado ang kanyang mental and physical growth, apektado din po ang kanyang emotional growth, apektado ang kanyang health. So kahit anong scholarship, kahit anong gold card ng PhilHealth na ibigay mo sa bata na nabansot na, ay hindi mo na maibabalik. Hindi mo na yung stunting ay pwedeng maging irreversible. So yun po ang number 1. Kailangan nating pagtulong-tulungan yung peligro sa ating bansa yan. Can you imagine 1 out of 4 Filipinos who could be the best pilot, the best accountant, the best lawyer, who could be someone who discovers the cure for cancer, who could be the next Hollywood star, who could be the next tennis star after Alex, the next Carlos Yulo. Hindi niya makakamtan ang kanyang pangarap at kanyang potensyal. Bakit po? Dahil hindi kaya ng magulang niya, pero ang gobyerno bilang pangalawang magulang ay may ibang priorities. Siguro naman, Mr. President, dear colleagues, we will all agree. Stunting has to be a priority. We keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. Mali po yun. Mga suliranin sa ating education system. I recognize every single person, our Secretary of Education, Secretary Angara, our colleague Bam Aquino, every single person here, Ate Pia, Tess Daman, Joel Villanueva, lahat po. Siguro, isa-isahin ko lahat ng senador dito. Of course, committee chair din ng Education Committee who did a great job, si Senator Win Gatchalian. Lahat po tayo ay may contribution sa edukasyon. Pero ano sabi ng EDCOM? Yung K-12 na dapat 12 years, 7.5 years lang. So, ang sinasabi natin sa buong mundo, K-12 kami. So, akala nila 12 years ang education natin. Hindi po, 7.5 lang. So, una ang forma, kaso sa substance. Sinasabi ko po to dahil peligro po to. Kahit anong pagbabago ng curriculum, kahit anong dagdag ng mga gadgets, kahit anong modern equipment, kahit anong taas ng sweldo ng ating mga teachers, kung punong-puno ang classroom at half day, at 7.5 years lang sila, para tayong K-8, kulang pa, bitin pa ng 0.5. Total outstanding debt out of now is 12.79 trillion at the end of 2022. The debt increased by 45% to 18.55 trillion as of the end of 2026. Bakit po ito peligro? Yes, numbers lang po yung utang at depende din po ang utang sa ratio niya sa GDP. Pero ang problema po, dahil sunod-sunod ang problema at mga problema, whether it's man-made or outside our control, since the pandemic in 2020 till now, nasa lugar na tayo kung saan hindi tayo basta't makautang. So yung ibang bansa, nung dumating yung Israeli, Iranian, US conflict, nakautang, nakagawa ng mga programa. Tayo, dahil nga sa laki ng utang, yung fiscal space kung pag-usapan, ay problematic na. Hirap din po ang ating mga magsasaka. Kanina lang po, yun po ang pinag-uusapan dito. Senator Pangilinan, Senator Loren, Senator Amy na may puso talaga sa agriculture. Kaya kung sino man ang magsasabi sa atin na okay naman ang takbo ng ating agriculture, let's agree to disagree. Kasi I think in the last 40 years, I'm not blaming only this administration, we haven't figured out how to really modernize, how to bring back the enthusiasm in agriculture, how to make it really a good business that people will go into farming. Actually, maraming mayaman na pumapasok sa farming. Pero yung mahirap na farmers, umaayaw sa farming. So isang problema talaga yung kapital. The share of agriculture, forestry, and fishing sector to the GDP steadily declined to its lowest point of only 7.9% in 2025. Agriculture's share in the total workforce has steadily declined 26.99% in 2016. 8 years lang po. In 2024, it was only 20.61% as the economy shifts towards services and industry. Maganda naman po ang services at saka industry. Pero nakita natin yung problema ng supply chain. Nakita po natin yan nung pandemic. Kailangan ng isang bansa na singyaman natin both sa lupa at sa forest, sa bundok at saka sa dagat. Kailangan we learn to be self-sustaining and produce our own food. Agricultural workers are also receiving the lowest wages among economic sector. Poverty incidence remains high among agricultural workers and farmers, 27%, and fisher folk, 27.4%, based on PSA data of 2023. Parati kasi tayong nagdi-disagree, kaya napabayaan ang agri. 'Di ba? Marami po talagang magaling sa Pilipinas, 'di ba? We really disagree with many things. So, ang napabayaan yung agree. Mr. Senate President, do you agree? Mas mahirap ang maghanap ng trabaho, pero nahihirapan na po ngayon ang ating mga trabahador. Lahat po ng may trabaho, especially kung daily wage earners, hirap po talaga. Kasi we have a minimum wage, we do not have a living wage that the Constitution envisioned. The Constitution envisioned a living wage. What is a living wage? Sapat sa tirahan, whether yan ay rerentahan o huhulugan, sapat sa pagkain sa buong pamilya, 3 beses man lang sa isang araw at ang Pilipino ay mahilig magmerienda, sapat sa anak na gustong mag-aral, sapat sa panggastos sa medical. So, a simple life, but a living wage. Malayo po tayo sa living wage. Sa Amerika po, maraming silang sinasabing mahirap. Pero doon po, maging driver, maging waiter, maging security guard, nakakabili po ng bahay, nakakapag-aral, nakakabili po ng kotse. Ang taxi driver po sa Singapore, tanungin mo, saan nagbabakasyon? Bihira niya sasabihin ang minsan Thailand, minsan Japan, pero karaniwan sasabihin sa inyo, London, Germany. Ang ating pong mga taxi driver, hindi makapagbakasyon kasi isang kahig, isang tuka. Pero kung nahihirapan po yung mga may trabaho, nahihirapan po ang mga walang trabaho. Yung naghahanap pero walang mahanap na trabaho. Simula po, at least po yung mga kasing edad ko, kasama po ang Senate President, kasama po Senator JV, Senator Migs, Senator Cheese, si Senator Padilla ata, sing edad ko rin. Namulat na po kami na may OFWs. And may mga lugar po na mabibilib ka. For example po, ibang-iba ang akalain ko sa Saudi. Pero pagdating ko doon po, kahit draftman kahit hindi po siya architect or engineer, bossing-bossing doon. Talagang sanay sa mga lugar, etc. No? May mga peligro din, pero lalo po kung ikaw isang professional, ikaw isang architect, for example, doon, na pagtatapos yung anak at magka-ambisyon man sila na yung anak nila ay magtrabaho din doon, it is from strength to strength or from one level of socioeconomic status to a higher level. Hindi katulad po, for example, ng iba nating mga nani sa Hong Kong na ang kinikita ay katumbas po ng 18 to 25,000 pesos. Kung 5 yung anak, it barely pays the bill. So malamang po yung asawa OFW din. So malamang po yung anak kay tita or kay tito or kay lolo o kay lola tumitira at lumalaki. At ang problema, dahil nga sa poverty, hindi rin po nakakatapos yung iba. Second generation sila na OFWs, pero hindi tumaas ang antas ng trabahong at ng kita na inaasam-asam nila. So ang tanong ko, Mr. President, going back to vision, can we not have a vision, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, where a Philippine president can say, at this year, there will not be any more, let's say it's 2026. Wala bang pwedeng magsabing in 2041 or in 2050? Yung totoo hindi bola. O in 10 years, wala nang Pilipino na OFW na napilitan lang mag-OFW dahil walang trabahong maganda sa Pilipinas. So you will always have expats, you will always have OFWs who want to work somewhere. So if artists love Europe, let them go to Europe. If you want to specialize in a certain branch of medicine and want to study in the US or London, you're free. But yung sasabihin mong, hindi, chef ako. So may nakausap kami sa Singapore. I think ang sweldo doon is between 70 to 110,000. Semi-fast food pa yon. Sabi niya, sir, kalahati lang. Kung 110 ang sweldo ko dito, kitain ko lang 55,000 sa Manila. Okay na ako. Pero kung hindi ka rin naman chef ng first class na restaurant o hotel, hindi ka naman kikita ng 55,000 dito. So napipilitan siya mag-abroad. At pag tinanong mo bakit, hindi para sa sarili niya. Hindi para magka-iPhone siya. Hindi para magka-kotse siya. Kung hindi para makapag-aral yung kanyang mga anak. Para may bahay ang kanyang mga anak. Negosyante, Mr. President. Usually, negosyante ang nagbibigay ng kulay, nagbibigay ng sigla, at pumapalakpak pag may sona. Pero yung sunod-sunod na problema, some we under our control, some hindi. What is not under our control? 2022, patapos yung pandemic, nangyari yung conflict ng Russia at Ukraine, may mga inflation na nangyari. Flood control, in a sense, it's under our control because it could have been stopped, pwedeng hindi, or how are we handling it? Iran, US, and Israel, it's not in our control, but how we reacted is up to us. Nauna pa yung Senate Yung sa ating protect at ang ating Senate President nagpatakbo nun. Yung uplift, sumunod na lang yon. So we could have reacted faster and better. Having said that, nandyan na yan, how do we prepare ourselves to not only be active, proactive, but to really achieve what we can achieve through our potential. Hindi yung pwede na. So tay, tanong nung anak, sinong may kasalanan? Well, anak, madaling magturo. The easiest thing to do for the opposition is to point at the administration. The easiest thing to do for the administration is to point to the secretaries. Secretaries can point to Congress, which they sometimes do. We sometimes point to them because it's the implementation. The local government will point to us, and then to the national government and the local government, and the national government will point to the businessmen. So ang daling magturo. Pero siguro, anak, for the sake netong state of the nation at paano tayo magkakaroon ng common vision, sabihin na lang natin ganito. Parati naman merong kasalanan, pero ang pag-usapan natin, sino may responsibilidad? Kasi maaring hindi mo kasalanan, pero may responsibilidad ka pa rin. Di ba? So, those not involved in the flood control are still responsible na ayusin natin ang bansa at tanggalin ang corruption. Those walang kasalanan dahil tumaas ang presyo ng diesel, dahil may problema tayo sa fertilizer, dahil byproduct siya ng natural gas. Di natin kasalanan yon. Pero may responsibilidad tayo sa mga jeepney drivers, taxi drivers. Sa ating small businesses, all around the world, same statistic, halos. Sabi po natin dito, and I think the Senate President cited this during his opening of the session yesterday, 99.63% of establishments are micro, small, and medium enterprise, contributing 66.97% to job generation and 40% to our GDP. Pero anong number one problema ng negosyo sa ating bansa? Dagdagan ko pa, problema ng gusto magnegosyo, may magandang idea, masipag, matalino. Pero ang problema, walang kapital. Pag tinanong ng gobyerno, ang gobyerno, saan kami kukuha ng kapital? Sasabihin bangko. Hindi ka naman basta pautangin ng bangko eh. Land bank nga eh. Nasa batas na nga na magpautang sa magsasaka. They'd rather pay the fine than magpautang sa mga agribis na maliliit. Kung wala ka rin isasanla sa bangko, wala ka rin titulo ng lupa o wala kang sasakyan, wala kang mga ari-arian, sasabihin sa'yo, diyan ka sa pawn shop. Sa pawn shop, bukod sa mataas ang interest, may isasanla ka pa rin. So, saan ang baksak ng ating mga kababayan? Sa 5-6. Don't get me wrong. 5-6 is a service. Di ba? So, for example, sa palengke, wala ka ng kapital, may piyesta o kaya Pasko, maraming namamalengke. Kung kikita ka naman ng more than 20% in 1 month, let's say 25-30% tubo mo o kaya 10% per week, so 40% a month, kapit ka na sa patalim sa 5-6. Kasi yung 5,000 mo, babayaran mo ng 200 a day, 6,000, may get 20%. Pero napakataas pa rin nun. Ang yumayaman sa Pilipinas, yung nagpapautang ng 5-6, hindi po yung umuutang. So pagdating po sa gobyerno, sabihin, ilan administrasyon na, sir, bakit hindi natin magaya yung 5-6? Bakit hindi tayo magkaroon ng programa? Ano to ha? The estimates are 20 billion, 50 billion, 200 billion. It's big business. Ano sagot ng gobyerno? 5-6? May pamalit ba tayo doon? Ang sagot ng gobyerno, 6-7. 6-7 lang. O, i-google nyo yung 6-7, walang ibig sabihin. So, balik ka na naman sa 5-6. Children in conflict with the law. Yan ay isang debate. Mainit ang debate dyan. Pero hindi ba mga kababayan, mga kapwa magulang, kung itong tatay na to ay sinasagot po ang tanong ng anak? Responsibilidad din yan ng magulang, ng teachers, ng simbahan, ng mga komunidad. Sabi nga po, di ba ni Hillary Clinton, it takes a village to raise a child. Yes, there is something that caused that child to become violent. Whether siya may mental disease or problem, whether siya na-depress, whether siya ginamit ng mga kriminal, the point is, Mr. President, there is a blame, but there's also a responsibility. Pag ang isang lugar, whether sa US yan, whether sa Latin America, whether yan po ay sa Africa, whether sa Tondo, whether it's in any rough neighborhood, at sasabihin marami ng gangs yan, it is our joint responsibility. In the end, there is a specific blame, and there is a general responsibility. Habang usapan natin yan, mahabang usapan yan, Mr. President, but eventually, we do have to discuss it sincerely and very deeply. Tay, bakit mahirap ang ating estado? Ano ba ang pumipigil sa ating bansa? Well, may mga bagay nga na wala sa ating control, yung mga external. May mga bagay na nasa ating control. Pero may mga bagay din na ina-address natin directly, pero ang problema, kultura. For example, we have to address corruption. But we have to address the culture of corruption. Sasabihin natin, wag magnakaw sa flood control, pero ina-address ba natin ang pandaraya pag nangongopya sa exam? Ina-address ba natin yung simpleng pagsisinungaling sa araw-araw? Ina-address ba natin na sa bawat kailangan ng Pilipino, lisensya, business permit, real property tax, customs, ay may lagayan? So, the culture of corruption continues to lay hold. And as a Christian, I believe there's a spiritual aspect to that battle. There are spirits that control, di ba, that are principalities and authorities. Kaya sabi sa Bible, you have to bind, then you have to occupy. Hindi sapat na mawala yung iba't ibang scam. Kaya nga palaki ng palaki ang scam sa ating bansa. Policies ay nagpapahirap din sa atin. Nabanggit ko na kanina yung K-12. Mukhang tama si Senator Jinggoy Estrada. Tanggalin na natin ang 1 o 2 taon sa senior high kasi K-10 na 10 taon na nag-aaral ang bata na mas kumpleto ang gamit niya ay mas mabuti kaso sa K-12 pero 7.5 years lang ang pinapasok ng ating bata. Another example, ang bata ngayon karaniwan sa highly urbanized ay half day. Sabi niya, Tay, ang ganda naman ng tinuturo ng aming mga teachers. Magagaling naman ang aming mga teachers. Yung nasa mga religious schools, parochial school, Christian schools, yung mga nasa madrasa, Brother Robin, no? Sabi, maganda naman tinuturo sa amin eh. Maka-Diyos. Anong problema? Hindi po kung ano tinuturo nila, kung anong nakikita nila. Children learn by what they see, what they experience, not by what they are taught. So, Mr. President, that's a lesson. Mr. President, that's a lesson to us. It is a lesson to us, Mr. President, that in everything we do, the children are watching. And they learn from that. So whether it's the internet, television, whether it's news, whether it's cartoons, whether it's video games, all of this influence them. So what's the solution? Maging klaro kung ano tama at kung anong mali. 'Di ba? Kahit mapanood nila, pero nakita nila, eto, naparusahan dahil mali, matututunan nila mali. Pero Mr. President, pag nakita nila yung mali, nagiging tama sa matatanda, I remember in the 1980s, yung kasama ko parate, he was in the Marines and they were asked during martial law to lecture about not having colonial mentality. Ano po ang ginawa nila? Nagtuturo na ang local is as good as imported. And then kumuha ng sigarilyo, at that time, dito pa pinapasok yung sigarilyo, kinuha Blue Seal. So, yung mga tinuturuan, hindi matuto. Mr. President, pumunta ka ng Hong Kong, Singapore. Sabi ni Senator Pia, pati sa Thailand. Napaka-liberal na nga sa Thailand dahil ang cannabis ay pwede, pero ang vape hindi. I think kay Senator Win Gatchalian, ang ating Senate President, without an S, sorry. Ang halimbawa, ang nagsabi na may nagpakita ng statistics, I think that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, na despite being heavily regulated, hindi na-re-regulate. Halimbawa sa Baguio City, inulat mismo ng City Health Office na may 350 menor de edad ang nahuli dahil sa pagve-vape sa loob ng 1 taon. Ayon din sa isang survey, 1 sa bawat 7 kabataan Pilipino na edad 13 hanggang 15 ay kasalukuyang gumagamit ng vape. Nakita din na malaki ang tinaas ng paggamit ng vape ng mga kabataan nitong mga nakaraang panahon at mas marami ring kabataan dati namang hindi naninigarilyo ang nagsisimulang gumamit ng vape. Tay, ano naman yung issue sa PhilHealth? Ay nako, pabayaan na natin. si Risa Ontiveros, si Senator Bongo, si Senator Pia Cayetano, si Aimee, at lahat ng iba, si Senator JB, na napakahaba na ang diskusyon doon. Pero ito lang ang sasabihin ko sa iyo, anak. 20 years ago, more or less, or more pa, maybe more than 20 years ago, nagkaroon ng programa ang Thailand. Magbayad ka ng 100 baht, libre na lahat sa ospital. Ngayon, 30 na lang. 30 baht, libre lahat. Ba't hindi po natin magawa yon? Ganun lang kasimple. Medyo humaba na yung speech ko, anak, kaya hindi ko nababasahin yung statistics ng health. Tay, pinapanood ko ang Pangulo kahapon, bakit unang-una niyang binanggit ang flood control? Ganyan ba ka-importante yung issue na yan? Bakit una niyang binanggit? Anak, biggest issue of the year yan eh. At pinakamalaking skandalo sa corruption in our history. Anak, importante ma-resolve yan. Anak, importante malaman ng taong bayan yung tunay na nangyayari, anong ginagawa, anong pwedeng gawin, anong reforma ang pwede. Anak, dapat kasi bumalik ang tiwala sa leaders at sistema. Pag yan ay hindi binanggit at hindi inayos, lahat ay suspect. Anak, napaka-importante, madapa man ang isang bansa, ay siya'y bumangon. So, in other words, genuine reforms. Symbols matter, anak. Pag may mga skandalo na tumatama sa isang bansa, may isa o dalawa na bukod tangi dahil nagiging simbolo. Either simbolo kung paano ni-resolve ng isang bansa at paano niya nilampasan ang corruption, or simbolo kung paano nanatiling nakadapa ang bansa at hindi makatayo. So sana anak, we will find the strength and wisdom to conclude the investigations, to hold people accountable, but also to put the genuine reforms. Isang simpleng example lang, isang simpleng suggestion na binigay ko sa DPWH na 2 beses tinanggap ng secretary pero mukhang hindi ginawa. Ordinaryong cellphone, kunan lahat ng projects para makita kung may ghost o wala. So 1 year later, the problem is hindi pa kumpleto yung data. Pero wag ka mawalang ng pag-asa, anak. Walang bansa sa mundo nang hindi dumaan sa corruption. At walang bansa na umunlad na hindi niya kahit papano na-address ang corruption. Tay, bakit ba pinilit mo na dito tayo sa syudad tumira? Kasi anak, dati at least sa probinsya may makakain ka. Ngayon, dito sa mga syudad, lalo sa Metro Manila, libre ang uniforme pag nag-aral, may scholarship pagka college, pagka single parent, kapag ka PWD, pag senior, may regalo, may cash gift, meron pang minsan mga giveaway. Dito anak, may internet. Mr. President, in 1980, 1/3 lang ng Pilipino ang nakatira sa urban. 2/3 ay sa rural. And we know around the world, mas maganda ang ugali ng mga nakatira sa rural. Mas may sense of community, sense of camaraderie, mas may malasakit sa isa't isa. Pero napilitan ang mga kababayan natin sa rural. Bakit po? Go to certain parts of France, of UK, even the US, Canada. Rural, pero may kuryente, may tubig, may ospital, may eskwelahan, may internet. Sa atin hindi. Pag sinabi mong urban, sigurado po yan, mayaman. Pag pumunta ka ng rural, mahirap. Ang problema, ang mahirap sa rural, pag pumunta sa urban, mahirap pa rin. Mas maginhawa buhay, pero mahirap pa rin. Mahirap po. So, Mr. President, we should have a real rural development project. That was something I heard a lot in the 70s, 80s, 90s. Pero siguro, kasi mas maganda talagang ang sabihin sa isa't isa, sa syudad ako nakatira, nakakalimutan natin. May I pay tribute to isang USEC ng DBM, I think USEC Abuel. I remember when she topped the bar, sabi ng isang reporter sa kanya, "Ma'am, ano pakiramdam mo ng isang taga-probinsya ay nag-top ng bar?" The reporter, I think from there, but I'm not sure from Manila or from there, was referring to na hindi ka taga-Manila. Kasi dati, karamihan ng nagtatap top 10 nandito sa Manila, Manila Law Schools. Sabi po niya, excuse me, Baguio is a city. So hanggang ngayon po sa atin sa Metro Manila, pagka hindi ka sa Metro Manila or Metro Cebu o Metro Davao, or minsan taga Metro Cebu ka na, Metro Davao, ang dating sa atin sa mga Metro Manila, taga probinsya kayo. Walang masama po maging sa probinsya. Ang problema po, bakit wala tayong rural development program? Which brings us to transportation. Mr. President, ako'y natutuwa na narinig ko po yung additional trains at stasyon na sinabi in both zonas. Last year zona at ngayon. Pero bakit po, kung titignan natin ang national budget, kalye pa rin ang ating tinututukan. Tignan nyo po ang Laguna Lake, Lakeshore, yung ginagawa pong highway po dyan. Nasabi natin last year at umuo ang DOTR Secretary, umuo ang DPWH Secretary, na pag-aaralan nila kung lalagyan man ng kalye, lalagyan din ng tren. Pero wala akong nababalitaan magandang plano para sa tren na magkakabit ng probinsya ng Rizal, probinsya ng Laguna at Metro Manila. Napakasimple lang po niyan. Ginagawa na po yung kalye. Nire-reclaiman na po yung lake. Ganon din po ang Mindanao Railway. I have to speak because wala po dito si Senator Bato. Pero sa last year budget natin, inamin po ng DOTR kung lalagyan lang nila ng 10 bilyon. And I think Senator JV mentioned this 7 years, basta bago ako mag-DFA or after ko mag-DFA, binabanggit na to. Oh, so nagka-problema sa funding sa China. Pero yung phase 1 po ay pwedeng pondohan ng ating gobyerno. Bakit hindi? Huwag tayong pumayag na yung pagkakamali ng Metro Manila at ng ibang lugar sa Luzon ay maging pagkakamali ng Mindanao. Kasi unlike Visayas na grupo ng mga isla, ang Mindanao ay mas halintulad sa Luzon, pero mas mayaman sa Luzon. So sana naman po sa 2026 budget, may pondo na po ang Mindanao railway system regardless kung sino ang nagtatap ng survey sa Mindanao. Patapos na to, Mr. President. Makwento po kasi si tatay at si anak. Anak, malaki talaga ang potential ng Pilipino. Maabilidad kasi ang Pilipino. Tay, ano ba mangyayari pag na-realize natin ang potential? Anak, lahat ng komunidad, lahat ng lugar, lahat ng Pilipino ay makikinabang. E di tay, ba't hindi natin gawin? Maraming dahilan, anak, pero isang dahilan, algorithm. Ngayon, para na tayong fraternities na nagrarumble. Na experience ko sa University of the Philippines, pag may rumble at may brad ka na nagulpe o mayroong kang gugulpihin, hindi na importante sinong tama at mali. Ang importante, protektahan mo brad mo. Sa ating national discussions, sa impeachment, sa flood control, sa iba't ibang mga issue, ang kampihan natin, masarap man kung mas marami kang kakampi, wala nang sanity eh. Algorithm. Parang fraternity, kahit mali, kampihan ka na lang. That's a problem, I don't know the solution. But what can I tell you, anak? Noong 1960s, we were second only to Japan. President Erap kept on saying this during their presidential election in 1998. So ni-research ko yan. Meron palang World Bank study na nagsabi, ang pinakamalaking potential ay Pilipinas, ang pinakamaliit na potential, Korea, Taiwan, Vietnam. Bakit po? Dahil po sa mga gera at kondisyon ng kanilang bansa. Ang Korea, yung Korean War, pero dahil din sa sobrang winter doon. And this was the 1960s. The technology was much less. We know about Taiwan dahil nga po sa revolution sa China, and we know about Vietnam that had a long war between the South and North at saka yung hilahan during the Cold War. But wag na nating pangarapin na maging second tayo sa Japan, sa Asia. Balik tayo sa 70s, 80s. Vietnam, nasa ilalim natin. Thailand, kapantay natin. Mas moderno tayo sa Malaysia. Pero ngayon, sabihin nyo, whether infrastructure, whether tourism, whether manufacturing, kung ano-anong pag-usapan po natin, naiiwan na po tayo ng ating pong mga neighbor. So anak, we have to get our acts together. Anak, hindi ko na isa-isahin Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam. Kung may pera tayo, puntahan natin. Kung wala, i-internet mo na lang pero makikita mo yung ganda. Pero anak, pinakita ng tatay ko to sa akin. With your permission, Mr. President, can I show the picture of Singapore in the 1950s? In the 1950s po, Singapore was a fishing village. Maraming potential, maraming maganda, pero wala po kasi silang natural resources. Tapos may problema sila with Malaysia, may racial problems. In fact, maraming taga Davao ang meron pong nani na galing po sa Singapore. Pero ngayon po, ano na itsura ng Singapore? Next slide, please. Next slide, please. At kahit anong indicator po, human index indicators, health, education, quality of life, safety, kung hindi number 1, number 2 ang Singapore. So madalas sabihin ng aking ama sa akin, anak, isipin mo, 1 generation lang kaya yan. Kasi yung iba sinasabi, 100 years, 200 years. Hindi, 1 generation. But you know, my good friend and brother in Christ, Jeremiah Belica, who's here, the irony is we were in Singapore and we had a conference talking to Christians from all over the region and pinakita niya tong picture na to or similar to this. Next slide, please. He showed this picture. Hindi niya ni-label nun, kaya hindi ko nakilala kaagad. And it wasn't so far ago. It was in 1996. Ito po ang itsura ng Bonifacio Global City. Next slide. Pinakita niya po ano na ang itsura ngayon ng Bonifacio Global City. In 20 to 30 years po, not only did a city rise from 5 million a year in 2009 na budget sa scholarship, 1 billion na ngayon. From a few hundreds to a few thousand, more than 50,000 scholars, between 15,000 to 80,000 pesos. From Fort Bonifacio, catering to mostly Metro Manilan, richer cities, yung nagtatrabaho dyan, in the last 10 years, napakaraming engineers, abogado, chef, na nag-graduate, mga professionals, dahil nga nag-rise up in less than 30 years. Next slide, please. President Pinoy saw the potential. So this is just the comparison. Next slide. Ilan administrasyon ang sinubukan ibenta yung part ng FTI? 2012 po to. Ano na itsura ngayon ng Arca South? I was there last Sunday sa Landers. Dinala ko yung anak ni ate at mga pamangking ko. Next slide, please. It's turning out to be, quite a beautiful development. At yung traditional barangays ng Senate, ang Signal Village, Marlica Village, ang Upper Bikutan, Western Bikutan, napakaraming residente ang naglalakad na dyan. So Mr. President, kaya po natin. I don't have time now and I don't have the pictures of how Cebu City, Mandaue, Davao City, Iloilo, Bacolod, your city, Mr. President, Valenzuela, Mandaluyong, Cagayan de Oro. I was thinking if I'm going to mention the city of Senator Jinggoy and Senator JV, but I will mention San Juan. No? But my point is, Mr. President, may pag-asa eh. Di mo kailangan maghintay na matagal. So nung bata ako, gusto ko na sabihin sa matatandang politiko, panay sabi nyo, para sa amin eh. Pero kayo lang yung mayaman eh. Di naman nagbabago. Kaya wag tayong magalit sa mga bata ngayon if they're demanding that when we said this is for you, they want to see faster results. At kaya, Mr. President. So in that sense, let me close, Mr. President, by saying, let's take a second look in having a new local government code, giving more decentralization. Actually, I will push the envelope dahil nakatingin sa akin si Robin Padilla na may kakampi siyang mabigat. Kakampi po niya si Dr. Jose Rizal na nagsabing federalismo ang dapat sa Pilipinas. So Mr. President, there are system changes that can help our country. But it won't happen kung may problema tayo sa demokrasya. Sabi ng Pangulo, I am president not only of my family, and it is worth yung palakpak na binigay sa kanya. But can we add, the president is also not only the president of the administration, he is also president of the opposition. And respectfully, I believe that Senator Bato is fleeing unjustly because he cannot get justice. I believe Senator Jinggoy and Senator Marcoleta are political prisoners, and that if it wasn't weaponized, they will be able to at least go out on bail. So, Mr. President, these are things that we should talk about as a Senate. Beyond politics, beyond emotions. Sabihin nyo na mali ako, but should they be allowed to attend the impeachment? Sabihin nyo na mali ako, and they're not political prisoners, but are they getting the justice? Pantay-pantay ba ang hustisya o selective justice po tayo ngayon? Mr. President, I don't know if there's a slide, but if there is, please put it on. So, ang huling tanong nung anak, Tay, ang daling sabihin, common vision. Pero ano yung common vision na yan? Actually, nasa preamble ng ating Constitution. And allow me to read it. We, the sovereign Filipino people, imploring the aid of Almighty God, in order to build a just and humane society and establish a government that shall embody our ideals and aspiration, promote the common good, conserve and develop our patrimony, and secure to ourselves and our posterity the blessing of independence and democracy, under the rule of law and a regime of truth, justice, freedom, love, equality, and peace, do hereby ordain this Constitution. Anak, ito ang batas ng ating bansa. Pero may mas mataas na batas dito, ang batas ng Diyos. Anak, ang isang bansa na hindi niya kilala ang kanyang sarili, yung walang identity, walang mangyayari. So Mr. President, let me put that forward. Whether as individuals, as a community, as a country, let me quote Dr. Miles Monroe, identity is important. Who am I? Second, what am I meant to do? A question of purpose. What is the purpose of the Philippine nation? And third, destiny. What am I meant to do? If we understand the preamble of the Constitution, we understand the law of God, we understand our destiny, purpose, and identity, we will be on our way. So let me close by telling our mga anak, manampalataya po tayo, anak. Let us believe, but let us act. Faith without action is dead. Sabi sa Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future. But it is followed by Jeremiah 29:12 and 13. Then you will call upon me and come to pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me, and you will seek me with all your heart. So that's my prayer today, Mr. President, that despite the toxic politics, despite our disagreements, let us all seek God and have faith that when we seek Him, we will find Him. And when we find Him, He will show us His plans to prosper us and not to harm us, plans to give us hope in the future. Thank you, dear colleagues, for this opportunity.
Maraming salamat, Minority Leader, and maraming salamat sa iyong mga obserbasyon. At sang-ayon po ako na isa sa pinakamabigat na problema ho natin ay yung stunting or malnutrition ng ating bansa. Kayo bilang member ng EDCOM at itong kinatawan rin ay isang member ng EDCOM, nakita ho natin na mabigat po ang problema ho natin sa malnutrition. At yan rin naman po ang tututukan ng Senado, higit sa lahat ng ating bagong finance share para malagyan po ng pondo yung first 100 days at yung laban ho natin sa malnutrition. So maraming salamat sa ating Minority Leader. Majority Leader?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Congratulations to our Minority Floor Leader. Before we recognize next to speak and avail of the privilege hour, we'd like to also recognize a visitor from Antique. The Governor of Antique, Governor Paulo Javier, is with us today. We'd now like to recognize the sister of our distinguished Minority Floor Leader, no other than our distinguished colleague from Taguig and Pateros, Senator Pia Cayetano.
We recognize the gentle lady from Taguig, Senator Pia Cayetano.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ang haba ng kwento ni tatay sa anak niya. Pero thank you, Senator Alan, for that. Ako naman sa mata ng isang nanay. So, I was a young mother like Camille when I first became a senator in 2004. And ang dami ko na rin natutunan, ang dami kong sakit ng ulo, ang dami kong joyful moments in my job. My children are, my two daughters who were then 5 and 9 are now grown-ups, and my son is now 16. So, I have come to believe that the true measure of progress is not in labels or statistics alone, but in whether our children are healthier, safer, better educated, and equipped with opportunities to succeed in this life, the life na tayo naman ang gumawa para sa kanila. A few weeks ago, the World Bank upgraded the Philippines to an upper middle income country. Paano ba ang visualization natin pag sinabing upper middle income country na tayo? Seriously, dear colleagues, indulge me, close your eyes, and imagine what that country looks like. So I had more time to think about it, so I don't have to close my eyes, but really I challenge you. Di ba ang naiisip natin, blue skies, parks, happy family, right? That's always the vision. Happy family, grandparents, everybody healthy, parents that can provide for their children, 3 meals on the table, kaya umuwi ni tatay o ni nanay ng matinong oras na hindi naubos yung panahon niya dun sa traffic na 4 na oras na hindi siya makasakay dahil maayos ang transportation system, o kung sa probinsya man sila nakatira, meron man lang, katulad ng sinabi ni Senator Alan, may tren man lang doon, may bus, kung ano man, pwedeng mag-enjoy ng weekend. May mga sidewalk, bike lanes, park. Parents are watching their kids play sports or watching their kids perform in a concert. Di ba yan ang magandang weekend? Tapos yung mga bata, kumakain ng masustansyang pagkain. At katulad ng sinabi ko, healthy ang parents and grandparents dahil meron din silang health system na madali nilang ma-access. At pag holiday, pwedeng may handa. At guess what? Pwedeng umuwi sa probinsya na hindi ubos ang sahod dahil hindi ganun kamahal ang airfare na katulad ng dinadanas natin ngayon. Pero napakahirap ipagmalaki at ipaliwanag na tayo ay isang upper middle income country kung hindi naman ito nararamdaman ng karamihan ng mga Pilipino. Ano nga ba ibig sabihin nito? It means that the country has a gross national income per capita between $4,496, so 277,000 pesos, okay, to $13,900 or 860,000 pesos, reflecting the economic size rather than individual household income. So ito po ay national economic size. Hindi po to individual income. So when you look at the vast majority that are minimum wage earners, less than minimum wage earners, informal sector, hindi naman sila nandito sa income bracket na ito. This is merely an income classification. It is a way of grouping economies according to average income. It does not reflect the struggles of ordinary Filipinos, ordinary families, because this is our reality. SWS Survey 2026 reveals that 52% or 14.5 million Filipino families identify themselves as poor, while 42% consider their families as food poor. Hindi man lang makakain ng maayos. Another SWS survey of 2026 states that 23.2% of Filipino families experience involuntary hunger in the first quarter of 2026. Involuntary po, hindi po nagda-diet, sadyang wala na ho talagang makain. According to PSA, poverty incidence, this is as of 2023, is 15.5% or 17.54 million poor Filipinos. So when we celebrate our status as an upper middle income country, ang pakiramdam ng tao, you do not see us. You do not hear us. Hindi nyo kami nakikita. Hindi nyo kami napapakinggan. Hindi nyo ramdam ang hirap namin. Kaya ako po, never ho ako nagse-celebrate kahit ilang taong ko na yung naririnig na malapit na tayo mag-upper middle income. But it does not translate to a better life for most of the Filipinos. I can spend all my time on this. I will not, because yes, we can argue it is better because makaka-avail ng mas magandang mga loans and so on and so forth. Pero matagal pa ho ang effect nun. In fact, if you look at what investors are looking for, they have a long list of wants if they will invest in this country. Hindi lang basta yung makita nilang upper middle income ka. So I look to the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. With only 4 years left before the 2030 deadline, and as the chairman of the Senate's Committee on SDGs, Innovation and Futures Thinking, we have been meeting with various agencies to understand where we truly stand. According to the data from PSA, out of 17 SDGs, only 10 have shown progress since 2015. Only 10. However, even among these 10, 8 are not progressing fast enough such that we will meet the targets of 2030. So, mukhang fail po tayo sa Sustainable Development Goals. Even more concerning is that 2 goals are actually moving backwards. These are the SDG 3 on good health and well-being and SDG 11 on sustainable cities. More on health later, but for now, I'd like to point out that the decline in SDG 11 on sustainable cities and communities is particularly alarming because, according to the United Nations, by 2050, nearly 68% of the world's population is projected to live in urban areas. PSA has stated if our cities are not safe, resilient, and sustainable, millions of Filipinos will bear the consequence. Sadly, in many of these areas, we still lack the timely and reliable data needed to know where we are making progress, if at all. And if we do not have unified data to measure our progress, we cannot improve at all. That is why, as we reflect on yesterday's accomplishment, as mentioned during the President's SONA, I want to ask a simple question. Are Filipino families truly living better lives? On health, we welcome the President's emphasis on preventive care, the expansion of YAKAP and Gamot, and the implementation of zero balance billing. These are important steps which I have also supported through the years. These are also aligned with the SDG goal number 3. But the true measure of universal health is whether every Filipino can obtain timely and quality care without being pushed into debt. On universal health care, it is anchored on the following pillars: preventive care, equipped health facilities, adequate health professionals, and sustainable funding. Without this, it remains a vision. Vision lang po, pangarap lang po, hindi reality. On PhilHealth and the Syntax and PCSO and PAGCOR collection, we recognize the full allocation of Syntax revenues to PhilHealth in the 2026 General Appropriations Act. I thank the now Senate President for supporting our push for this to happen. First time in many, many, many years. Despite this development, however, PhilHealth has still been deprived of over, listen to this, dear colleagues, over 292 billion in earmarked and unreleased funds. Pera po ng PhilHealth yan. 113.44 billion pesos is the unallocated Syntax collection from 2023 to 2025. May slide po tayo. Tingnan po natin. In 2023, the Syntax earmark for PhilHealth was 83.90 billion. Ang nasa NEP is 79 billion. Ang nasa GAA is 79 billion. So kulang ng 4.90 billion. Parang maliit lang naman. In 2024, 79.01 billion pesos ang earmark. Ang nasa NEP ay 80.28 billion pesos. Ang nilagay sa GAA is 40.28. Kulang ng 38.73 billion pesos. And in 2025, 69.81 billion pesos ang Syntax earmark. Ang nasa NEP po ay 53.13 billion. Ang nasa GAA, 0. And so, ang unallocated Syntax in the final ang kulang po is 69.81 billion for a total of 113.44 billion. Nasaan na po yan? Pera po yan para PhilHealth, para sa pagpapagamot sa ating taong bayan. Now, this is only the unallocated sin tax collection. Meron pa ho yan sa PCSO and PAGCOR. Ang sa PCSO and PAGCOR naman, ang PhilHealth share ay dapat 119.80 billion. Ang na-reflect sa GAA is 42.34 billion pesos. Ang kulang is 77.46. Na-release po ba yung 42? Kulang na nga ng halos kalahati. Hindi pa na-release. Zero ang na-release. Zero. Finally, yung sa unreleased appropriation, 2023 and 2024. Alam ko po ito, hindi po ako expert naman, hindi po ako nagme-memorize ng numbers, pero familiar po tayo dahil tayo po ang nag-defend ng budget ng health for these years. Ang unreleased appropriation, meaning na-appropriate na, nandyan naman nakalagay, 101.43 billion, never na-release. And that is why the total amount due is 292 billion pesos, almost 1/3 of a trillion. So nagtataka tayo, pinagmamalaki, 3 million ang nakinabang sa zero balance billing. Baka naman kung na-release to, baka naman 10 million ang nakinabang sa zero balance billing, hindi ho ba? Kailangan kompleto po ang figures natin kasi baka naman hindi nire-report sa presidente ang katotohanan. Hindi ho fair yun. So if PhilHealth received the funds that are legally mandated to collect, they could have reduced out-of-pocket expenses of Filipino patients. Yung nilalabas sa bulsa ng Pilipino, nabawasan sana. Pwede rin ma-expand ang benefit packages dahil maraming package hindi covered. Malalaman mo na lang, ay hindi pala covered yung sakit ko. Ay yung ganito palang klase. Sorry, hindi kasama. At yun din pong premium subsidies for indirect contributors na laging kunukulang katulad ng mga indigent and senior citizens makokompleto. So, out-of-pocket spending and zero balance billing. Access to healthcare must also include protection from financial hardship. In 2024, sabi, 42.7% of Filipino household pay 42.7% of the country's current health expenditure. So meaning, labas ng pocket nila yung 42.7% ng gastos. Ano ba yung standard? Well, WHO says to achieve universal health care, a country's citizen should only be paying around 15 to 25%. So ang goal is 15 to 25. Di naman zero. Siguro kung upper income na tayo, baka zero na. Pero ang goal lang naman is hanggang 50 to 25, 42 po tayo. So sobra-sobra pa ang ina-out of pocket ng kababayan natin. Siyempre, kung mahirap ka, wala ka talagang pangbayad. So, I'll take time to share this story. I've shared it before, but it is worth sharing again. There's this place that I frequent when I need to be inspired. It's called the Tuloy Foundation, where Father Rocky and his team take care of either orphan children or children who are in need of a safe home. Many of their children come from Mindanao, where their families, their villages are in conflict with the law. Anyway, and they also support street children. So there was 2 boys who were there. And the older boy, 2 brothers. The older brother was maybe 11 or 12, and his younger brother is probably 6. Duling yung kanyang kapatid. So, pinakilala sa akin ni Father Rocky, and then sabi ni Father Rocky, oh, ayan, sabi ni Senator Pia, sasamahan ka daw niya para magpatingin, para yung mata mo magamot na. Tapos sabi nung kuya, hindi sumasagot. I would have thought na, yay, di ba? Parang maayos na yung paningin ng kapatid ko. Hindi sumasagot si kuya. So, I was like, oh, ayaw mo ba? Hindi naman masakit. Tsaka okay yan. May bayad ho ba? Kasi wala akong pera eh. Imagine an 11-year-old. Immature in many ways, but mature enough to know wala silang pambayad. So, that is the state of the nation. For many children, for many families. The president reported that the expansion of zero balance billing, which he said already benefited nearly 3 million patients, he mentioned that in his statement. That was already mentioned last year. And it took a week or even longer for the then Secretary of Health to explain that this only applied to DOH hospitals, DOH hospital wards. So meanwhile, the LGUs all over the country nataranta kasi syempre, yung mga constituents nila pupunta sa LGU hospital, nag-e-expect ng zero balance. Hindi naman available ang zero balance doon kasi kaka-launch lang ng program. So yun nga, it took a few weeks, finally, na-clarify na DOH hospital wards lang. Inulit po ngayon. Naintindihan ko po yun, dumadaan po tayo sa, ano ba tawag doon, pag tinetesting pa natin yung program, piloting pa lang. Naintindihan ko po yun. Pero ito yung reality natin. Out of more than 1,200 government and private hospitals nationwide, zero balance billing is available in only 87 DOH-run facilities and 4 GOCC specialty hospitals and 6 LG hospitals that are now being piloted. So wala pang 100. So 1,100 other hospitals do not have zero balance billing. Again, hindi naman kailangan agad-agad, but i-announce natin to eh. Iklaro natin kung ano yung state of the nation natin. More than 1,100 hospitals do not have zero balance billing. So, these are the details. A vast majority of our country's healthcare capacity, including 346 LG-run hospitals and 864 private hospitals, do not have zero balance billing. So ang mga kababayan natin, pag yan ang napuntahan nyo, sorry po, wala pong ZBB doon. This narrow scope is further compounded by geographical imbalances. 40 out of the country's 82 provinces do not have a single DOH hospital. So, 40 provinces, walang DOH hospital doon. Eh di paano? Sasakay ka ng tricycle, kalabaw, jeepney para pumunta sa kabilang probinsya para maghanap ng DOH hospital. That is the reality. Again, alam ko naman it takes time, pero we have to be honest about where we are. The 87 DOH hospitals are concentrated in only 42 provinces and major urban centers. As a result, patients in underserved provinces must travel 3 to 4 hours across municipal lines just to reach a facility that offers zero balance billing. In urban areas like Metro Manila, bed capacity is predominantly provided by private hospitals, which far outnumber regional public facilities. So kung taga Metro Manila ka, mas konti pa rin. Madami na nga ang tao, mas konti din ang DOH hospital. Coupled with low bed-to-patient ratios and chronic overcrowding, relying solely on 87 DOH facilities is simply not enough. As such, in the 2026 budget, we had to push for additional funding. Funding, additional, amendment, tawagin yung amendment, tawagin yung insertion, kahit ano pang gusto nyo itawag. Pinagmamalaki ko, na pinaglaban ko ang additional funding sinuport ng ating chairman, now Senate President, ang additional funding for ZBB, 3.3 billion operation of DOH hospitals in Metro Manila, another 6 billion operation of DOH regional hospitals and other health facilities, and 1 billion for DOH Universal Healthcare Fund for zero balance billing. Kasi yung pondo nun, kulang talaga. Okay, I move on to another topic. Human resource for health shortage. However, facilities cannot function without health professionals. The Philippines continues to face a serious shortage and unequal distribution of doctors, nurses, pharmacists, dentists, psychologists, and allied health workers, particularly in rural and underserved communities. WHO estimated a domestic shortfall of around 200,000 health workers, while approximately 1/3 of licensed Filipino health professionals are working abroad. Mag-aral dito, naghanap na ng ibang future sa ibang bansa. As a consequence, the Philippines has only 21.2 healthcare workers for every 10,000 people as of 2026, far below WHO's benchmark of 44.5 health workers for every 10,000. So more than kalahati yung kailangan, more than double yung kailangan isupport ng isang health worker sa recommended ratio. This requires sustained investment, which this representation has advocated through the expansion of medical scholarships under the Doktor para sa Bayan, at kasama ng marami nating kasamahan dito sa Senado. Tayo ho ang nagpupush niyan. Maraming salamat sa Senate. additional medical schools and investment in allied health. When we passed this law, there were only 8 medical SUCs. Today, we have 28. I am so proud of the Senate for pushing for this. It is a collective effort of this body. We have also been pushing for more science labs because kailangan ng doktor ng mga partners in healthcare. So lahat ng allied health, yan naman ang kailangan natin din pagtuunan ng pansin. Nabanggit ko na nga yun, may shortage tayo sa pharmacy, sa therapy, occupational therapist, physical therapist, sports, sa speech therapist, lahat po yun kulang na kulang. Lab technician, yung kumukuha lang ng blood test, kulang po yan all over the country. And this is a whole of government approach. We need SHED. We need the state universities. We need the higher education institutions to be a part of this because saan naman natin dadamputin itong mga professionals? We have to train them. We have to encourage them to enter into these professions. And then we have to make them realize that they have a bright future in this profession, in this country. So marami pa talagang kailangan gawin, kailangan po ma-address ito. And I end on this interesting note. Today, and I've seen this a couple of times, may mga vlog po akong nakita sa Instagram ng mga foreigners na magre-relocate na daw sa Philippines because mas maganda daw ang treatment and care for children with special needs sa Pilipinas. And this, the one I saw yesterday was from a foreigner who lives in the UK. Wow. Wow. And I think that is a tribute to our healthcare workers because alam ko naman na may shortage. Alam natin yan. So may mga foreigners na namamangha pa nga sa nagagawang trabaho ng mga health workers natin despite the fact that sila ay overworked and underpaid. So congratulations talaga sa mga health workers natin. Okay, I go to another example. I'll try to keep this short because you've all heard me talk about this. The vape epidemic. Data from the Food and Nutrition Research Institute reveals the rapid growth of youth vaping from 2015 to 2023, which recorded an increase in e-cigarette use of 0.8%, meaning less than 1%, to, guess what? 39.9%. Practically 40%, almost half of the youth are now vaping. Something that never even existed 10 years ago. A focus group research conducted by the Institute for Global Tobacco Control at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health finds a tidal wave of flavors from e-cigarette manufacturers have been embraced by Filipino youth since 2022. Not even 5 years ago, when the Philippine government lifted restrictions on e-cigarette flavors and lowered the legal purchasing age to 18. 21 years na nga po yun, dear colleagues. But this Congress, not this particular Congress, but the previous Congress, reduced the age to 18. Why? I do not know why. The US FDA, this is interesting, dear colleagues. I reported many times that the US FDA has rejected 55,000 flavors in the US because unhealthy yung flavors. I researched again. 1 million flavors na ang na-reject ng US FDA sa mga nag-a-apply na magbenta ng flavored e-cigarettes sa US. Ang Pilipinas, ilan ang na-reject? Sige nga, isipin natin. 1,000 applications kaya? 5,000? Ang nireport is that they have rejected certain applications because of the flavor descriptors. Because it violates a provision in the law that we have na bawal mag-describe ng fruit flavors, bawal din mag-describe ng dessert flavors. So na-reject yun because of the way it was described, not the content of the vape. So good luck sa mga nagve-vape, sa mga magulang na pinapayagan nyo ang anak niyo nag-vape o hindi nyo alam na nagve-vape dahil hindi po tested yung mga products na yan. Pwedeng lason ang vini-vape ng mga anak natin dahil hanggang ngayon wala pang natitest. Dahil binigay ng Kongreso ang power din sa DTI na wala namang kakayanan ng DTI at hindi naman nag-aabala. For whose benefit? For the benefit of the vape manufacturing companies, many of whom are the same cigarette companies. That is the state of our nation. Vape promotional events using celebrities and endorsers and giveaways are still rampant, and these are not allowed. Pero nangyayari pa rin. So I move on. Teenage pregnancy. I welcome the President's recognition of teenage pregnancy as an urgent national concern. When we fail to protect our youth from early pregnancy, we deprive them of a future. Napakahirap po ng problemang ito, Mr. President. And I intend to work with our colleagues who will be supporting clear measures on this. On sports, nako, napakasaya ko na nababanggit po ang sports. Aside from Kaloy Yulo, aside from Alex Ayala, nabanggit din po ang Philippine women's football team who made it to the World Cup 3 years ago and are going again next year. We're so proud. We're so proud. But it's not enough that we say that we are proud. We must invest in these young people. When does the investment happen? Not after they won, when they are training. So every year, and I don't know how many of our colleagues, but I know there's quite a few of us here who receive requests from our Philippine Sports Commission, from Philippine Olympic, from the various NSAs asking for support for the grassroots talent that they have identified. They need to train, they need to compete, they need facilities to be able to improve. I am a true believer that sports can change life. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the families, the private sector, the LGUs, and the coaches behind the success of all these athletes. Many of them are responsible for the success of these athletes. And we will never know who they are. So government can stand up. Wag lang natin palakpakan pag nandyan na. Tulungan natin habang hindi pa sila nadidiscover, habang hindi pa sila sikat. Education. I laud this year's education budget, truly a record-breaking 1.35 trillion or 4.4% of GDP. It finally meets the UNESCO recommended benchmark of 4 to 6%. But not much was said about it during the President's SONA. And at the proper time, we would be happy to expand on this because much progress has been made, but there are still a lot of work to be done. Classroom shortage is still there. Teachers' workload, alam na alam ng Senate President natin yan dahil siya po ay chairman ng committee natin ng basic education dati. Itong guidance counselor, I am proudly in a very early supporter of the need to figure out what we can do about this. And we now have 10,000 new school counselor associates, but it is still a far cry from the number we need. So we need to still find ways to attract even more young people to enter into this field. Sadly, natawag pa tayong bullying capital of the world. Sana hindi naman totoo, pero we still have to be conscious na may ganon at hindi tayo pumayag na manatili itong sitwasyon na ganito. Early childhood care and development, very close to my heart. I was blessed to grow up with a mother who specialized in early childhood education. And all the experts tell us how important this is. Every barangay needs at least one functioning child development center for early education, health, nutrition, and social development services. Coordinated po iyan. So much more has to be done, Mr. President, so much more. Sama ko na dyan ang inclusive education. The same gap between policy and practice show up in inclusive education. We have a law. This must be fully implemented so learners with disabilities get trained teachers, proper assessment, accessible facilities, and individualized support, not inclusion on paper alone. This historic education budget is an important achievement, but it must now produce historic improvements in learning, measured by whether our children can read, understand, think critically, and build a future for themselves. So I think this is my last topic on energy, fiscal concern, and unpaid work. Energy and fiscal concern, Mr. President, I fully support energy security, particularly the natural gas discoveries at Malampay. I'm a big supporter of indigenous supplies. Kailangan po yun. And also na matanggal na po ang systems losses that are being charged to our consumers. Importante po yun. I also recognize administration's initiative to increase the annual personal income tax exemption. Mr. President, na-hearing na po natin ito nung tayo ay chairman ng Committee on Ways and Means. Pwede na ho itong ituloy-tuloy para maging law na to para sa mga kababayan natin nagsisipag at nagtatrabaho. There will be a higher threshold now for tax exemption. We also support the exemptions for small businesses. There were specific measures mentioned, but perhaps we can even improve on that and provide more support. On unpaid care work, Mr. President, this is SDG 5 on gender equality. Let me remind everyone that in the world, not just in the Philippines, women contribute many hours of unpaid work. In the Philippines, the Philippine Institute for Development Studies says that on average, a Filipino woman spends 28 hours a week on unpaid care work. So para na siyang full-time employee sa family. Is that wrong? No, there's nothing wrong with that. It is an amazing job. It is my favorite job. But it is unpaid work. So for many women, wala na silang maibang mapagkakitaan kasi dito na nila binuhos yung oras nila. And then they are not even recognized as contributing to society. Hindi man lang nabibilang as part of GNP yung napakahirap na trabaho nila. In other societies, binabayaran yon. It's either ikaw ay child care provider for senior citizen, provider for somebody who's sick. But for women, most do not get paid for this work. This is something that is a worldwide problem, and maybe the Philippines can finally do something about it, Mr. President. So, I move on to another topic, water situation. I welcome the President's continued commitment to irrigation, water security, and disaster preparedness. On water security, this is a pressing issue. The DNR reported that about 40 million Filipinos still lack access to a reliable water supply. The PIDS reports that 12.4 million remain without safe water. In the hearing I had, not in this Congress but in the last Congress, ang layo pa natin, Mr. President. Ang layo pa natin. We must work double time on this issue, Mr. President. Now, the link to food security is also clear. Farmers are the first to suffer when irrigation is weak or water is scarce because agriculture depends on water for planting, growing, and harvesting. Our colleague, Senator Aimee, might be sharing more about this. We have a lot of experts here, Mr. President, Senator Aimee, Senator Kiko. I leave it to them to elaborate more on this, but I join them in their passion to uplift the lives of our farmers. Reports in June 2026 show that 8 major Luzon dams are still receding, including Pantabangan, falling far below its normal levels. Mahirap po yan, Mr. President. Mahihirapan tayo sa agriculture natin, mahihirapan po ang mga farmers natin. That is why irrigation and water security must be treated as a core development investment and not a side program. Using strategic foresight and futures thinking, we must plan ahead by improving climate data, water monitoring, irrigation systems so we can prepare for shortages before they happen and protect families, livelihood, and food security. Sa ibang bansa nga, siguro yung sa mga upper income, middle income countries, talagang they rely po on foresight and futures thinking. They do. They use AI, they use technology to help forecast and to help their farmers. Di ko alam kung nagagawa po natin yon. Sana naman, for one of the poorest sector in this country, dun tayo magbuhos ng atensyon sa kanila. In closing, it is my hope that by the time we begin the budget process, we will be able to provide all committee chairpersons with the detailed data and agency reports needed to guide their deliberation. Ito po yung mga SDG reports, yung mga indicators, so that our budget priorities are anchored not just on needs, but on measurable progress towards our SDG targets. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Senator Pia.